I'm fallen. I need a Savior. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Christianity is not Christians. Christianity is Jesus.
Several years ago, there was a movement called the Emergent Church that swept through our country and still is. But it has sort of spawned this idea of taking the Christian faith and dismantling it, deconstructing it, and that's quite popular right now. Would you just kind of address deconstruction Christianity?
Yeah, I've just spent the last year or so researching deconstruction. First, let me ask, how many of you have heard the word deconstruction in the context of faith? Okay, so maybe half. So I'll give you a picture of what it looks like. I'm sure you've seen it, even if you don't know the word. It might be a Christian author, famous pastor, seminary professor, maybe an author or singer. A lot of musicians have done this, where they'll go on Instagram and say, you know, I've really been wrestling with my faith. I've had all these hard questions. Nobody could answer my questions. And so I'm out. I'm no longer a Christian. Probably the most famous one would be Josh Harris. Remember I Kissed Dating Goodbye, that iconic book from the 90s. And so this has rattled a lot of people because they're using the word deconstruction to describe that. And so what we see in the deconstruction movement is that ultimately at the core, it's a shift of authority. So it's not just having some doubts. It's not just searching after truth, but you've become unsure if the Bible is true, but you want to know what it is. So you're searching for what the truth is. That's not what we're talking about. It's not, you know, we want people to engage hard questions and to ask the hard things. But in deconstruction, you're not doing that quest based on searching for truth or even having the Bible as any kind of a standard of authority. You've shifted the authority to your own self. And this is, they'll say this outright, that if you're going to a book or you're going to any external authority, you know, you're vulnerable to cult-like mentality and to be oppressed and harmed by these toxic doctrines. So in deconstruction, you go with what works for you. You go with what you deem by your own moral compass, which, by the way, is broken if Christianity is true. But you follow that to cobble together what you think God is and your path for you. And that's really what deconstruction is all about.
That was so well defined and put. Thank you for that.
Notice how Alisa just pointed out some of the things that they say that somehow Christianity is toxic or it's abusive. Notice those are moral terms, that they have this moral standard by which they seem to say that what you believe as an evangelical Christian is wrong. Again, by what standard are they saying this? And it is true, however, we have to admit that Christians have not lived up to the Christian ethic, that we have all fallen from that. And Dr. John Dixon from, now he's at Wheaton, I believe, asks anyone who ever feels, well, let me just ask the question, how many people in here know of others who have stayed away from the faith, stayed away from God because Christians have been mean to them? Or they've been hypocrites, right? Yeah, most of us, right? Dixon asks you to ask those people this question. When somebody plays Beethoven poorly, who do you blame? You don't blame Beethoven. You blame the player, right? So when somebody plays Jesus poorly, you don't blame Jesus. Look, just because I'm not true and beautiful doesn't mean Jesus isn't true and beautiful. I'm fallen. I need a Savior. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Christianity is not Christians. Christianity is Jesus. In fact, a number of years ago, I had a couple of debates with Christopher Hitchens. You remember him?
Yep.
He was a brilliant British atheist who sounded more brilliant than he was because he had a British accent. And you can see these on our Cross-Examined YouTube channel. In any event, at one point in the debate, I turned to Christopher because he had written a book about how much evil Christians and other religions have done. And I said, you know what, Christopher, you're right. We have done evil. But you're proving our worldview. In order to have evil, you have to have good. And good only exists in an objective way if God exists. And so we are fallen. You wouldn't even know what evil was unless you knew what good was. Good only exists if God exists. C.S. Lewis famously said that you wouldn't know what a crooked line was unless you knew what a straight line was, right? So what is this standard of good in your worldview to say that we've done evil? You don't have it. But let me agree with you. We have done evil. We're hypocrites. We are hypocrites. When someone says you're a hypocrite, you ought to say, I am. What's your point? Right? You've just given evidence for God. It's wrong to be a hypocrite. Okay, I'm fallen. And so when people tell me I can't go to church because there's too many hypocrites down there, I always say, come on down, pal, we got room for one more. The church is a hospital for sinners. It's not a country club for saints. All right? It would be like saying, I can't go to the gym because there's too many out-of-shape people down there. That's why they're there.